So, I've been aware that I've been talking a lot about pouring resin and that I do pours of resin, and some people might not be aware of what I'm meaning by that. So to clarify, I'm going to show you a pour of resin today and how I do that. So the things you need to do a pour of resin are the resin itself. I use ice resin. It is jeweler's grade, crystal clear. You get it in two parts. You get the resin and the hardener, and you mix it 50-50 to activate the resin. You need some little cups to mix the resin in, some stir sticks to do the mixing, some cocktail sticks to push the resin where you want it on the piece. I always keep a pin around in case there's any stubborn bubbles that need to be gotten rid of. And a gas barbecue lighter. I prefer this style because it's got a longer end and it keeps my fingers away from the resin and the heat. I also have a mixing jug that I put hot water in. So I now have my resin in its warm water bath. The reason I do this is because in the colder weather, the resin part of the mix tends to get quite thick, and it means that when it's mixed together, the bubbles don't escape from it as easily. So by warming it up slightly in the water bath, it loosens the mix up and allows the bubbles to escape, giving you a clearer finish to the final piece. Now, the absolute one thing you must never do when warming resin is to warm the hardener part of the resin. If you warm the hardener part of the resin, it yellows and it does not leave it crystal clear. I have learnt this by mistake to my cost because I had to order new stuff. It ages the whole resin process by warming the hardener. You don't need to warm it. Once you're happy with the thickness of the resin part of the mix, you then need to pour it into a cup. And it's a 50-50 mix, so I use these small cups and I measure 5 ml and another 5 ml, or 10 and 20, depending on how much I'm going to use. For this demonstration, I'm going to use the smallest amount just so that the bubbles clear quicker. And for the sake of the camera, I have marked on my cup the two lines that I'll be pouring to. So I pour the hardener part in first. And pour it right up to the 5 ml line, and then I take my resin and pour that up to the 10 ml line. Once you've got the two parts in the cup, you then take your stir stick and mix. And this can take some time because you'll see the mixture, it will go cloudy. But also I don't want to mix it too much, so much and so quickly that it incorporates too many bubbles. So you can see there it's already gone milky, and what you have to do is keep stirring 2 or 3 minutes to make sure that the mixture goes clear again. I'm constantly scraping from the sides. Occasionally I'll scrape off what I've got on the spatula so that it's all getting combined, and I keep mixing. You'll get to a stage where you think it's all combined, but you continue for a little bit longer just to make sure that there's no streakiness left. Once you're absolutely happy that there's no streakiness left, you need to leave it for a couple of minutes to let the bubbles rise to the top and dissipate. After about 5 minutes, the resin, you can see that most of the bubbles, the big bubbles, have gone. There are some micro bubbles in this batch, but I can deal with that with the lighter, which I'll show you how to do in a minute. But let's get on and start pouring. Now, although I refer to this as pouring, generally I kind of drip the resin on the back of the pieces just so that I can control where the resin is going. So I dip in my bamboo skewer and I get some resin on it, and I drip it onto the piece. And I just let it drip on, and I'll leave that for a little bit, and it will self-level So I move on to the next piece, make sure that I've got some on the bamboo skewer and drip it onto the next piece. And the next. I'll try and get a close-up of one of the larger pieces so that you can see it better. So as with the others, I just drip the resin onto the back. Once it's gone so far, you need to help it to get to the rest of the edge, and I just tease it out. It won't go any further than the edge. If you're very careful, it will stop against the edge and it will dome. This is where you might need a cocktail stick to hold the piece while you're pushing the rest of the resin out to the edge. Now you can see it's all nicely to the edge, but there are bubbles in it. Once the resin has sat for just a little while, you can then take your barbecue lighter and just very quickly run it over the top of the piece, and the heat draws the bubbles out. The way I choose to do it is to take the lighter over it once, leave it a fair few minutes, and I'll come back to it and do it again, and you'll see that there'll be more bubbles to pop. And you keep doing that until the resin is then clear. So I've got a little bit of resin left in the pot, and I'm going to put that onto one of the biggest pieces, and it should be just enough to go to the edges. And with this I'm just going to literally pour it on. Because it's a bigger surface area, I can trust that it's not going to just go everywhere. Again, using my cocktail stick to steady the piece while I move the resin out to the edge. Again, I'll take my lighter and just run it over the top of the piece. So these are the pieces I managed to get out of the 10mm resin, not as many as I'd anticipated, but they're quite large pieces. And what I'll do is I'll keep coming back every 5 to 10 minutes, waving the heat over the pieces just to make sure that all of those last micro bubbles are gone. Then I put the cover on them and leave them for 24 hours. Generally, that's why I do my resin pouring at night, because I can do it and walk away, and it gives it at least a good 8 hours to set up, and then I'm off doing other things during the day and I come back to it the following evening to check them. Hopefully that wasn't too boring and that it all made sense. I just wanted to let people know when I'm referring to pouring resin, that is what I'm doing. The process itself doesn't take too long. I can spend about an hour faffing with all the parts until I've poured the resin and that I can walk away from it. But the whole process then takes 24 hours to actually set up until I can move the pieces from the mat. It also then takes more days for it to properly cure until I can move on to other parts of it, like the sanding and the drilling. So the whole process, that's why when I'm talking about resin, I talk about it for a course of a week, because it's not just I pour a resin and it's done. It takes time. I will be back again soon with another update and hopefully some more interesting things to show you.